The 2020 legislative session is underway from now until March 12th. Each year, representatives of the House and Senate convene together at the Utah State Capitol to pass laws that affect our state and our residents. Lynn Pace, Director of Government Relations, shares details. And our History Minute is about 1948 Academy Award-winning actress Loretta Young. Let's get started with our legislative update and look back.
At its February 4th meeting, the City Council received an update about the operations at the Sugar House Temporary Shelter, received a briefing about a zoning ordinance to address medical cannabis operations in the city, and received an updated draft of the city's 2020 to 2024 consolidated plan that would guide the use of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development funds. To learn more, visit slc.gov/council.
The 2020 census begins on March 12th. Anyone and everyone residing in the United States is being asked to complete the survey online, by mail, or phone by April 1st. The 1st of April is Census Day and the point in time when the nation counts its entire population. Be part of history and Salt Lake City's efforts to count everyone. For every Salt Lake City resident not counted in the 2020 census is a loss of $10,860 per person over the next 10 years. To learn more and to help make sure your communities are fairly and accurately counted, visit slc.gov/census. Last year, Salt Lake City employees, residents, and businesses participated in the Clear the Air Challenge, joining over 2,500 people to help reduce vehicle emissions and improve Utah's air quality. Over 84,000 trips were saved, removing a total of nearly 360 tons of emissions from our air. The 2020 Clear the Air Challenge is underway, and there's still time to sign up. Hop on an electric scooter, bike, carpool, walk, skip a trip, or telework. Get creative with your method of commuting to drive less and clear the air. To learn more, visit cleartheairchallenge.org. Each year, Salt Lake City plays an active role in the 45-day Utah legislative session. Lynn Pace, Director of Government Relations for Salt Lake City, shares details.
My name is Lynn Pace. I work in the mayor's office in Salt Lake City, and I'm the Senior Advisor for Government Relations. What that mostly is trying to make sure that the city and the state are communicating on critical issues. A lot of times they have common objectives, but they miss each other because they don't have all the information. And then the truth of the matter is that we have city people view things differently than state people do. It's a little bit like, that story you've heard about, the blind man describing the elephant. And when you're looking from a different vantage point, you see things differently. And so my job is, as much as possible, to help both sides understand the perspective of the other party and to reach that middle ground, to bridge the gaps between the two of them. Anytime you have a change in administration, that creates a new opportunity, and people are anxious to get to know the new mayor or new council members, and to look for ways to collaborate and to share ideas and information. I tell people, and I think rightly so, that Salt Lake City is the face of the state of Utah. That most people, when they think of Utah, they come to Utah, it is Salt Lake City that they see and find first. And so for that reason, it's critical that Salt Lake City be safe, clean, successful, vibrant, welcoming, all those things. But Salt Lake City needs the state of Utah, and the state of Utah needs Salt Lake City. And so on those issues, with that in mind, we approach some of these bigger issues and try and work out some of the differences or the disagreements. This session in particular, we're concerned about, there's a critical bill for funding affordable housing. And so we're anxious for the states to get state support for what Salt Lake City's been working on for many years. We're concerned about homelessness issues. We're concerned about the legislation we anticipate with respect to the inland port, transportation. We're always concerned about water issues. So those are a number of the sort of the big ticket items that we're watching this session. There are a number of items that occurred to me over the years, which may have an element of disagreement and agreement, if that makes sense. For instance, the state made the decision to relocate the state prison. While that was a state decision, the decision to relocate the state prison into the northwest quadrant of Salt Lake City was a very contentious decision. And for reasons the state, I think they felt important for state interests, they sort of apologetically said, we know you don't want this, but this is where it works best for the state. And then they, to their credit, they circled back and said, how can we help you? And that dialogue led to some very productive discussions. The city now has a funding source, I think that they've referred to as the Funding Our Future. That's a revenue stream that was facilitated by the state as an outgrowth of that state prison discussion. And so I think that's a good example of where an initial disagreement can result in something that if we partner together, can be much more positive. The most effective way for individual citizens to participate is to be in contact with their individual legislators, that's representatives or senators. All of those elected officials are sensitive to and want to be responsive to their constituents. And so if someone comes up here and says, hey, you're my representative, you're my senator, I have these concerns, they're going to be very sensitive to those issues. Now, the other challenge a citizen will have is to say, well, okay, how do I do that? All of these people have published email addresses, often many times a cell phone number where you can call or text them, and either send them that information or even arrange a time to meet with them.
Next up is our History Minute.
Gretchen Young was born in Salt Lake City on January 6, 1913. When she was just 3, her family moved to Hollywood and she began to get bit parts in silent films. Quickly, she was signed to a contract and changed her name to Loretta Young. As Loretta Young, she starred in many films throughout the 20s and 30s and became a huge star. In 1937, she even added her handprints to the courtyard of the Chinese Theater in Hollywood. Some dismissed her talent, but she proved them all wrong when she starred in the 1947 film The Farmer's Daughter. It tells the story of a fiercely independent farm girl who moves to the big city. She goes from housemaid to congressional candidate in short order. It was this role that brought her the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1948. In the 1950s, she transitioned to the new medium of television, where she launched her own TV show. Her performances on The Loretta Young Show earned her an Emmy, making her one of the first actors in history to win both an Emmy and an Oscar. Her career never slowed down until she retired at the age of 50. She did come out of retirement briefly in the 80s for a couple of parts and even won a Golden Globe in 1986. She passed away in the year 2000 at the age of 87.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Capital City News. The Clear the Air Challenge is still on. Track how you're participating by visiting cleartheairchallenge.org. For SLCtv, I'm Poonam Kumar.